That silent night, something profound hung over Jerusalem. It wasn't just the gentle chill carried by the wind, nor the distant aroma of the olive trees surrounding the city. It was a different kind of silence, dense, almost spiritual, as if the universe itself were preparing to witness the most decisive moment in human history. Inside a simple upper room, Jesus and his disciples gathered for a last meal. And although none of them fully understood, something grand was about to happen. The table was set, but there was a gentle tension in the air. The disciples exchanged glances, noticing that Jesus was more serious, more reflective. He had always spoken with authority, but that night his words were heavier, as if they carried the destiny of centuries. He took the bread in his hands, looked around, and with an almost supernatural calm, broke it. "This is my body, given for you." At that moment, the bread was no longer just bread. It was a symbol. It was sacrifice. It was a promise. As Jesus shared among them, he also shared his love, his purpose, his very being. Then he raised the cup. The wine reflected the light of the lamps like drops of ruby, and his voice echoed in the hearts of the disciples. "This is my blood, poured out for many." The words pierced the room like arrows of truth, but no one there fully understood the depth of that act. They didn't know they were participating in an eternal milestone. They didn't know that this would be the last time they would be together in that way before everything changed. But then, Jesus did something none of them expected. He stood up, took off his outer garment, and tied a towel around his waist. Then he knelt before each disciple and began to wash their feet. The Master's hands touched the dirt and weariness of those simple men, and the water cleansed not only the dust, but also hidden fears, guilt, and arrogance. Peter tried to refuse, but Jesus insisted, for that attitude carried an eternal message. In the kingdom of God, true greatness is expressed in service. After the supper, they walked together to the Mount of Olives. The starry sky seemed to observe everything in silence. Gethsemane welcomed them with its long shadows and the intense aroma of ancient olive trees. There, Jesus asked his disciples to watch with him. But the emotional weight of that night was too great, and overcome by exhaustion, they fell asleep. Meanwhile, Jesus stepped back a few paces, knelt down, and prayed. His prayer was profound, filled with sincerity and suffering. "Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me." The words trembled like someone facing the abyss, but soon his faith was strengthened. "Yet, not my will, but yours be done." The sweat that dripped from him became like drops of blood. There, alone, he faced the weight of all humanity, the weight of sins, of pain, of wrong choices, of each soul he deeply loved. And then, footsteps broke. The glow of torches cut through the darkness. Soldiers approached rapidly. At their head, Judas. The traitor's expression was a mixture of guilt, fear, and determination. He approached Jesus and kissed him, the sign of betrayal. At that moment, history seemed to hold its breath. The soldiers seized Jesus. Peter tried to defend the Master, but he ordered him to stop. It was not with swords that this battle would be won. The arrest was brutal. They took Jesus bound, pushed through the streets, while the disciples fled, overcome by fear. He was taken to the Sanhedrin, where religious leaders had already decided his fate. They sought witnesses, invented accusations, distorted his words. The entire trial was a farce, a cruel theater constructed by hardened hearts. During the early morning, Jesus was also sent to Pilate. The Roman governor found no fault in him, but pressured by the crowd, he yielded. He ordered Jesus to be flogged. The whippings tore his skin, and each blow seemed to echo through the heavens. Soldiers mocked him, placed a robe on him, and forced a crown of thorns upon his head. The blood flowed slowly, revealing not only pain, but a love that would never retreat. When dawn broke, Jesus was condemned to crucifixion. The journey to Calvary was the most painful anyone could imagine. Carrying the heavy cross with open wounds, he limped under the weight of something far greater than wood, the weight of all human sin. At the top of the hill, they laid him on the cross and nailed his hands and feet. The sound of the hammer blows cut through the soul. Then they raised the cross, exposing Jesus before the crowd. The sky began to darken, and it seemed that even nature wept. Even in such pain, he still taught. When they looked at him with hatred, he responded with forgiveness. When they mocked him, he remained silent. When they blasphemed, he did not retaliate. And looking at those who hurt him, he said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they are doing." The afternoon wore on. A profound weight hung over everything. And then, with a weak breath, Jesus declared, "It is finished." He bowed his head and gave up his spirit. At that moment, the earth trembled. The veil of the temple was torn from top to bottom, and the world was forever marked. His body was taken down from the cross, wrapped in linen, anointed with spices, and placed in a new tomb. The large stone rolled to the door seemed to seal hope. Soldiers were placed there to guard, ensuring that no one approached. The Sabbath was an agonizing day. The disciples were hiding, fearful. The women wept silently. Everything seemed to be over. But when God is at work, nothing is truly lost. At dawn on the third day, the earth trembled again. An intense light enveloped the tomb. The stone was moved. The guards fainted with fear, and then the impossible happened. The tomb was empty. Jesus had risen. The women were the first to see the open tomb. Despair turned to amazement. Mary Magdalene wept before the empty tomb when she heard someone calling her name. Mary. Recognizing the voice, she burst into tears, no longer of sadness, but of indescribable joy. Afterward, Jesus walked with 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. They didn't recognize him immediately, but his words ignited something within them, a flame that had been extinguished, gradually rekindling. He explained the scriptures with a wisdom that only he possessed. And in the breaking of bread, his eyes shone, and they finally realized it was him. Later he appeared to the assembled apostles, bringing peace to fragmented hearts. Peace be with you. Thomas, who was not present, doubted, until Jesus appeared again and invited him to touch his wounds, not to prove strength, but to prove love. For 40 days, Jesus was with them, teaching, restoring, preparing them for the mission to come. He guided them with the tenderness of a father, the firmness of a Lord, and the love of a friend. And then, before many, he ascended into heaven, not as one who flees, but as one who assumes an eternal throne. The disciples remained gazing upward, marveling with tears of hope. The world had been transformed forever. This story is not only about what he did. It's about who he still is, about the love that transcends ages and reaches you, about a God who gives himself serves, suffers, dies, and lives forever.